Hey everybody, it's HBCU Game Day. It is Thursday. That means we get some time with our SWAC insider, BJ Jones. BJ, there is no doubt where we're going to jump in right now, and that is Grambling hosting Jackson State this weekend. This is a weekend a lot of people have been looking forward to because we have the new kid on the block, so to speak, with Deion Sanders and Jackson State. And we have just one of those bell cow programs in the SWAC. Of course, we're talking about Grambling. Coach Fobbs on the record this week saying, we ain't into the sideshow. That's a little bit of my spin on it. But in essence, he said, we've been here, we're going to be here. How excited are you, first of all, for this comparison, this contrast, this matchup?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to it. Grambling and Jackson State, they're rivals anyway. But when you throw in this prime and new kids on the block, new flavor in Jackson, man, it just makes it exciting. And for Jackson State fans, for them to be where they want to be, this is one of those games that they have to win. You have to beat Grambling, you have to beat Southern, you have to beat Alcorn State. So first, one of the big kids on the block on up first. So we'll see what happens.
Now, to be fair, this is going to be the first game for Grambling. They had the State Fair Classic postponed because of the weather damage there in Dallas last weekend. Jackson State did not play last weekend, which almost levels it out a little bit because they would have had two games under their belt. But they missed the game against Mississippi Valley State because Valley's been dealing with COVID issues. What do you think you'll see based on the couple of games that we have seen? We saw Alabama State play against Southern, and of course we saw Jackson State against Edward Waters. The level of rust, fatigue, things that you saw based on those two games, what would you expect from Grambling in general this weekend?
I think that you'll see, a team for Grambling trying to get in sync first. Trying to get their legs back, underneath them, and then, maybe late in the first half, you'll see them kind of smoothing that out a little bit. For Jackson State, you kind of hope that you keep the same momentum that you had against Edward Waters. Granted, you're stepping up as far as your opponent. Skill level is a lot different, but you hope you build off what you had at Edward Waters and not starting at Route One as Grambling is going to do on Saturday.
How excited do you think it is in that Jackson State locker room? Because they know the hype that's surrounding this program. They've been helping build it themselves. I mean, this is a test, man. Like, this is a check on the, your checklist, whatever cliche you want to put out there. How big would it be for them to go on the road and take care of business against Grambling?
It'll be huge. I mean, if we look at it since 2000, Jackson State is 3-17 against Grambling. They have not defeated Grambling since 2012, and that was during that 2012-2013 period when that Grambling program was in real turmoil. But outside of that, they don't have a lot of success that they can hang their hats on against Grambling. The last time that these two matched up back in 2019, Grambling ran away with it 44-21. So it's a series that hadn't been close. Grambling has dominated. Grambling people will remind you we've dominated Jackson State. So if you're Jackson State, you want to get that monkey off your back. For you to be back, for you to be a contender, this is one of those games that you have to win.
We're talking about our SWAC insider. He's BJ Jones. Man, Jackson State's been dealing with it too, man. Everybody in the city of Jackson, they haven't had running water for the last couple of weeks after the winter storm. I mean, it's almost like they're one of those, those fighters that they go into the extreme conditions for training camp so they can get ready for the big battle. What, if at all, does outside, kind of adversity like that affect the football player? You being a former football player playing at Southern University.
Well, one of the things that you learn when you play this game is that you have to deal with adversity. The team and the individuals that deal with adversity the best are usually going to be those teams that are close or going to end up holding up that trophy at the end of the season. We all know, when things are planned, how they're supposed to go, but how do you quickly adjust? How do you adjust to changes and things that were unplanned? The better you're able to do that, the better you set yourself up as well as your team up to contend for the title. So I'm pretty sure that's Coach, Deion Sanders, his message to his football team. Hey, let's control what we can control. What we can't control, let's just make the best out of it.
Jackson State showed that they like to run the ball a lot, or at least that was working for them against Edward Waters. Do you think Grambling is preparing for a lot of the run this weekend, or do you think we'll see more of the potential passing attack from Jackson State?
I think that you'll see Jackson State, try to run the football. If you look at Jackson State for the last couple of years, that's something that they've done very well, is run the football. There are some questions about Jackson State's ability to be able to push the ball down the field in the passing game. In the short and intermediate routes, they're pretty good. But this time you're dealing with a Grambling secondary that's very talented. That Grambling defense is very talented. So it's going to be interesting to see how that offense of Jackson State, can they move people enough to establish the run against Grambling? Because if you look at the yards per carry against Edward Waters, it wasn't the most impressive. And now you're dealing with a front seven that's going to be more athletic, they're going to be larger, it's going to have more depth. How does Jackson State adjust to that? And can they still move the ball on the ground to set up the pass against Grambling?
And for a team like Grambling, who hasn't played against another opponent in, almost 2 years now because of everything we've been dealing with, do you anticipate they might run the ball a lot just to get into the flow, get things going, kind of, I don't want to say keep it safe, but get their legs underneath them before doing too much with the passing game?
Well, Grambling, and they are stacked at the running back position, where there's Elder and Russell. Those two young men that are coming back, they did lose Kevin Dominique, who just announced he's going to the transfer portal. That's good news if you're Jackson State, because the last time you saw him, he went for 120 yards on 11 carries. So sigh of relief there. Bad thing is Russell and Elder are just as good. But I think that Grambling is going to try to run the football, and I think they're going to ease their quarterback into the contest, probably setting them up for some short throws, and then later on in the game trying to hit a few big plays over the top.
What about the Grambling quarterback situation? We all know they signed Noah Bodden, but he played in high school this past year, so he wouldn't be eligible for spring. But he'll be out there competing, we would assume, in the fall. What type of things do you think, how will things get graded? What would you be looking for out of the quarterbacks that are currently on the roster this spring for Grambling as they get ready for the fall?
So, yeah, Noah Biden, we won't see him in the spring, but who you will see in the spring is a young man that transferred from Louisiana Tech, whose name escapes me right now. That was their big quarterback pickup out of the transfer portal. You also have Jeremy Hickbottom, who's the returning starter from the last 2 years. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins that quarterback job. Do we see both QBs? And has Hickbottom become more consistent in the pass game? We know he's dangerous with his legs. He's able to improvise pretty well. But from a passing standpoint, he's inconsistent. He'll have games where you go, wow, they Hickbottom, Grambling really has something. And then he has other games where you're like, yeah, they might need to make a change. So they do have, like I said, another quarterback that came into the transfer portal who's highly touted, kid that's from the state of Louisiana. It's going to be interesting to see who gets the nod. And then once, if it is the new kid, how quickly does he adjust from the junior college game and then, observing most of his time at Louisiana Tech, and to now being thrown in the fire in the SWAC contest against Jackson State, and we know how heated that game is.
When I think about it, you listen to a lot and you read a lot and we talk about it a lot. Down there in the boot, man, it seems like Hickbottom and Skelton kind of run the same measurables and comps where you see that high ceiling that they have, and you're just looking for that consistency from both of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to Southern fans and Grambling fans, they'll say the same thing about the quarterback. I mean, the backup quarterback is always the most popular guy on campus, all right, because he can do it better. But like I said, you see good Hick and good Skelton, and then you see bad Hick and then bad Skelton. And I think what you really want to see with both of them coming into their senior year is a little bit more consistency. Not so much highs and lows, but kind of keeping it right there in the middle.
Wow. Man, it's going to be the game to watch. I think I'm going to get all my honeydew stuff out of the way. I'm going to settle in. I think we're at, a 1:30 Central kickoff with that game. So my afternoon is set, man. What is the one thing, if there's one thing in particular, when you sit down to watch the game, what are you going to focus on to when you see the answer to what you're looking at, you'll have a good idea of how the game might turn out?
Can Jackson State's offensive line um, match up against Grambling's defensive front? If you see more black helmets in the backfield early and often, that's probably going to break the spirits of Jackson State's offensive line, and it could end up being a long day. So, how well does Jackson State control the line of scrimmage really on both sides? If they can control the line of scrimmage, I like their chances. But if they can't, it might turn into a long day.
BJ, there was this honeymoon period with Jackson State. People were very excited for the amount of exposure that Deion Sanders was bringing to the program. There wasn't a lot going on as far as actual games. So, everybody was kind of kumbaya happy about that. But I said once the SWAC season started, that was going to do a complete 180, and everybody was going to want to beat the brakes off Jackson whenever they played them. Should Jackson lose, do you think, fans or people who kind of casually latched on to see what happens, should they lose any enthusiasm should Grambling come out with the win?
No. But one thing about it is, man, it is rough. It's rough in the SWAC. All right, it's
we should start a Facebook page called
that. But hey, if Jackson State loses this game, the first thing you're going to hear from Jackson State fans go, "We'll wait till the fall. That's when we're going to have all our guys going to be going full blast." If they win the game, oh man, the trash talk from out of Mississippi is going to be unlike anything that you've ever seen. Jackson State has been starving for something to hang their hats on. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been since 2013 since they had a winning season. We're talking about going back to 2007 since they've actually won the SWAC championship game. So they're thirsting for something. If they can pull this off, the people from Jackson are going to be chirping. If you thought they were chirping before, they're really going to be chirping if they win on Saturday. But if they lose, everyone else in the SWAC is going to be chirping. You're going to get a lot of "I told you so." And I think what you're going to get out of Jackson is, well, wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. And for Grambling, if they win, it's just going to be, that's what we do. We've been here before, right?
Yeah. So this is going to be, hey, next man up, next team up. It's kind of what we expect.
All right, it's exciting, man. Look, I love the hype. And before we let you go, there's been a lot of great conversation on our YouTube page, and thank you to everyone who's been commenting. It's been great back and forth. We've flipped our YouTube page into another social media thing. It's not just about watching videos; it's about the conversation as well. Donald Hill Ely, the head coach at Alabama State, had a glowing review for the prospect of playing spring ball permanently moving forward. Some people on our page like it, other people don't like it. Where do you fall with FCS football considering a spring schedule on a more permanent basis?
I think it's difficult to pull off because the sport of football is played in the fall, and then when you have everyone else playing in the fall from FBS, Division II, junior college, and everyone else, it gets kind of tricky to kind of flip that season just for the FCS players, especially when you start dealing with transferring and kids coming in from the high school ranks. And then you also have to look at it from a staff standpoint. There's only so much staff to go on, and in the spring we already have women and men's basketball, you have softball, you have baseball, you have all these other sports. Are the spring SIDs thin at that particular point? But for me, there's something special about the fall, getting out and traveling, the tailgating, and that getting that little crisp fall air. There's nothing better than that. So, personally, I would prefer to have it in the fall, and also when you have your draft eligible prospects, what does that do to them? The draft and the combine and all that stuff being held in the spring.
Yeah. It is an interesting conversation. I think one thing people get really excited about, we got this new ESPN deal. We're on ESPN3. Not to be a TV nerd, but with any network, there are levels. Okay? Mm-hmm. So ESPN3 is great. It ain't ESPN. There's a little bit of difference there, just a little bit, and not to throw shade on that. You got to start, where you start, and you got to build yourself up. But I think that's a point of distinction that when you get down into the minutia, that you should consider that as well when you start throwing out the accolades of spring. BJ, man, thanks a lot for hanging out with us today, man. Looking forward to the weekend, and we'll break it all down next week.
All right, man. Looking forward to it, man. Thank you for having me.